I'm not taking any chances. I'm not going to have an argument. Hey, I'm not having any arguments. Jesus Christ.
So Scripture teaches us.
Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. I want to start this video by showing two clips of Donald Trump and Kamala Harris talking about their Christian convictions. And then afterwards I will phase us into the next part of the video, which is going to be Bishop Barron's brilliant advice about who to vote for. Let's go.
Masks, no masks, everything, you can do all you want, but you know, you still need help from the boss. We need help from the boss. That's what happened. We need help. Right? Yeah, we need help. It's all right to say it. Now, they'll criticize me for that. How dare he say that? How dare he say that? No, I'll say it. I'll say it. I'll say it. Somebody said to me the other day, "You're the most famous person in the world by far." I said, "No, I'm not. No, I'm not." They said, "Yes, you are." I said, "No." They said, "Who's more famous?" I said, "Jesus Christ." I'm not taking any chances. I'm not going to have an argument. Hey, I'm not having any arguments. Jesus Christ. I'm not going to take any chances. I'll give it, I guarantee.
Good afternoon, church. Good afternoon. Oh, please have a seat. Please have a seat. Bishop O'Neill, I thank you so very much. We've had some time to visit before we came out into the sanctuary, and I just thank you for the leadership that you have provided for so long. You know, in times of crisis, and we're looking at the images of the aftermath of the hurricane, but it is easy in these moments of crisis to question our faith, to sometimes lose our faith for a moment, because what we see is so hard to see that we lose faith or a vision of those things we cannot see but must know. And you are such a leader in all of those ways, and I thank you. I'm honored to be with you. I'm honored to be with you. I'm honored to be with you. Thank you. And KCC family, thank you for welcoming me today. Thank you for the opportunity to allow me to worship with you. It does my heart and soul good. So Scripture teaches us, let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up.
All right, now let's watch Bishop Barron explain Catholic social teaching and how it necessarily relates to both political parties. And then secondly, notice that there is a preeminence placed upon our faith over and against our political affiliation. Check this clip out.
Again, this comes from a recent Pew Research Center poll. We're gonna just cover some of them. We'll jump ahead and skip a few here and there. But number one, U.S. Catholics are split down the middle politically. The Pew Research Center found that around half of registered voters, 48%, describe themselves as Republicans or say they lean toward the Republican Party, and 47% identify with the Democratic Party. What do you make of this? You know, some Catholics sometimes, I think, paint the picture that all Catholics should vote this way and this way only. So in their mind, all Catholics should be 100%. There's one block of Catholic voting. But what do you make of this finding that they're basically split right down the middle?
It doesn't surprise me, and I say that because of the nature of Catholic social teaching. I'll say something bluntly right off the bat. When people ask me, what's your politics? You Republican, Democrat, left, right? I always say, and I tell them the truth, I'm a Catholic. I subscribe to Catholic social teaching. That's my politics. And as everyone and his brother has pointed out, Catholic social teaching does not fit neatly into either of our political systems. There are things that are reverenced by Catholic social teaching that fit much more readily, you might say, on the left. Other things we reverence much more readily on the right. And so that people from both parties can say, yeah, I think that's really good. It doesn't surprise me that Catholics would be split. And I say that now as a word of praise, really, to Catholic social teaching, that it rises above the divisions of our politics. Now, let me make that a little more specific. So let's say things that are classically associated with the left. And again, there always are nuances here, but I'm saying classically associated with the left. A deep concern for the poor, a concern for social justice, a concern for migrants and those seeking, refuge from persecution, and so on. Opposition to capital punishment. Well, I mean, those are all things that the left in our system would tend to say, yes, we're for that. Catholic social teaching is for all those things. How about things classically on the right? Well, religious liberty, conscience protection, abortion, most famously, opposition to it, also opposition to euthanasia, defense of the traditional family, opposition to transgenderism and gay marriage and so on. Okay, things classically associated with the right, Catholic social teaching is for all those things. So which one is it? Well, it's both. It goes beyond the split. So I'm not really surprised by that. To me, it confirms in a way this very interesting feature of Catholic social teaching, that it's both and.
In the next point, the Pew Research Group found that just as Catholics are pretty equally divided today, over the past several presidential elections, the Catholics have kind of switched sides back and forth, and it's been closely contested. So they found, for example, that in 2016, 52% of Catholics backed Republican Donald Trump, while 44% voted for Democrat Hillary Clinton. But then 4 years before that, in 2012, they were split 50-50 between Barack Obama, Mitt Romney. 4 years before that, in 2008, 54% backed Barack Obama over Republican John McCain, and they go even further back beyond that. But I think it confirms what you just described, that there's just no close alignment between Catholic social teaching and one political party, that almost in every election, it seems like the principles of Catholic social teaching have to be applied to that person, that platform, and that context.
Yeah, Brandon, it's the beauty of it, and it's also the frustration of it. Because every year, every election season, we face this problem. So what do you do as a Catholic? And as I say, it's a beautiful testament to the complexity and richness and kind of inclusive quality of Catholic social teaching. But it's also, frankly, a source of frustration because it doesn't correspond to an easy either or.
All right, let's skip ahead a little bit. We'll skip number 3 and 4. I really want to spend a good deal of time talking about the 5th fact that the Pew Research Center found, because it bothered both of us a lot. They discovered that when it comes to specific policy issues, Catholics are often more aligned with their political party than with the teachings of the church. And they have several examples. I'm not going to go into them, but what's your response to that general finding? Does it resonate with you, and why is it such a problem?
Well, it doesn't really surprise me, but it chagrins me. It should not be the case that a Catholic is going to look first and foremost to, the platform of a political party. I think a Catholic should look first and foremost to the richness and complexity of Catholic social teaching and take his or her cues from that. So I think that's regrettable, and I think the stats get more specific about particular issues where Catholics seem to be, and whatever the issue happens to be, aligned much more with the party than with what the church says. Now, I say it doesn't surprise me because you and I have been tracing this for a long time. The amount of disaffiliation from the church, suspicion of the church, increasing secularism, so that people are looking more to secular political parties than to the church's teaching. It doesn't surprise me, but it chagrins me. I wish it were otherwise.
One distinction that you and other bishops have often made is voting for a particular candidate because of their views on issues X, Y, or Z, or despite issues X, Y, or Z. I think he's the best candidate despite these problematic positions. Yeah. And oftentimes when it comes to Democrats, abortion is the litmus test. Well, Catholics will say, well, I'm voting for a Democrat candidate despite their position on abortion. Most of them are pro-choice. But what the Pew Research Center found, this was another alarming stat in this 5th fact, was that 77% of Democratic and Democratic-leaning Catholic adults said that they think abortion should be legal in all or most cases. And so for me, it was kind of a mask-slipping moment where it seems like a lot of Catholics are voting for abortion-supporting politicians because of that position and not in spite of it. Talk about this nuanced distinction.
It's an important one, and you laid it out very accurately, Brandon. Is it possible in prudence to say, yeah, I'm going to support a candidate who takes a stance that's really opposed to Catholic teaching, but I'm doing it not because I think that's great, but despite it, and because I think there are balancing issues that he's also for that are really good, or there are things on the other side that I object to so strenuously, et cetera. And you make it, within that legitimately prudential realm, a judgment. But what you can't say, seems to me, and be consistently Catholic, is what the polls seem to suggest. Namely, I'm voting for this candidate because he takes a position, let's say a pro-choice position. No, you can't do that consistently. It's always a kind of lesser two evil situation. It's a well, yes, despite, never yes, because. And again, that's an example of taking the cues more from the political party, more from the secular discussion than from the church. So that's an important distinction. If you're going to do something or you vote for a candidate who stands for something really opposed to the church's teaching, and that cuts both left and right. I'm not just picking on the left side here. You can't do that consistently, it seems to me. It has to be a prudential judgment despite, not because of.
Now to conclude, I want to show a clip of Bishop Barron talking about a theological concept that I believe is often missed in this discussion about politics. It is providence contrasted to politics. We need to understand that God is ultimately in control of everything. So let's go ahead and watch this clip of Bishop Barron to conclude. And then after, the video is going to end, obviously. But I want you to be thinking about how you think about God in his relation to politics and the unfolding of history, that basically God is in control. And because he is in control, nothing happens apart from his plan. And if that is the case, how are you to have peace in this world, regardless of who gets elected president of the United States?
There's a famous 18th century book by a priest named Father Jean-Pierre de Caussade titled Abandonment to Divine Providence. Maybe for starters, tell us what this idea is. What is this spiritual principle all about?
Well, it's a way of instantiating this great theological idea that God is not blandly indifferent to the world, let's say in the deist kind of understanding, that there is a God, but he's more or less indifferent. You find the same thing in some forms of classical philosophy. This is a much more biblical idea, that the God that we believe in is the creator of the universe, of course, but also is the sustainer and guider of the universe. So God is, as Aquinas says, in all things, by essence, presence, and power. Well, what that looks like is what we call divine providence, that from all eternity, God has a plan. I think of one of my heroes, Bob Dylan. I'm hanging in the balance of a perfect finished plan, like every sparrow fallen, like every grain of sand. That's a deeply biblical sense of here's this wide and complex world, but in some sense, if I see it theologically, it's a perfect finished plan. It's something that God has had in mind that's unfolding according to his purpose. And our task, if you want, is to discern that will and then cooperate with it. So I would say it's a way of spiritually instantiating the idea of God's omnipresence in all things by essence, presence, and power.